Give you a tiny little bit of history about our office. We've actually been around for over 40 years. We were originally with the Department of Tourism for many, many years, and then about 3 years ago switched over to the Department of Commerce. And really the main reason for that switch, which is a legislative change, so we couldn't just kind of just make that decision on our own, was because we run a film incentive or a film rebate for the state, and the Department of Commerce also runs a lot of other incentives for a lot of businesses and communities. So it's a little bit better fit for us just in terms of running incentive programs. And so we've been there again for about 3 years, and it's working out really well. And so we are a team of 5, so we are small but mighty. Like many organizations, we wear a lot of different hats, but we seem to get a lot done. One of our biggest events so far this year was we have a film and music day at the Capitol, so that was March 25th. The next one is on April 1st of next year. And so usually kind of what happens is different organizations have designated days at the Capitol, and it's a day for the whole industry and vendors, and it's a networking opportunity for vendors, but it's also an opportunity for legislators to connect with different vendors throughout the state or different people working in those industries to know why this industry may be important to them and their efforts, and kind of if they're working in film or if they're working in music and why that's important to them. So currently the state has an incentive program of $30 million. That is up from $8 million. So about 3 years ago it was $8 million, and then we pushed it up to 30. It is the highest it's ever been for the state of Oklahoma. And it is a cash rebate. And so basically what that means is we do not fund films. It's a business development incentive, like many of the other state incentives, where local production companies or out-of-state production companies are incentivized to make their product in Oklahoma. So it is 20 to 30% cash back. They do have to have proof of financing before they shoot their film. So again, we're not financing the film. They typically have hire local residents, of course, to work on their film, and then they're spending money in whatever community they're shooting in. And then there is a CPA review to make sure that everything they said was accurate, and then it comes to our office, and then we work with the tax commission to pay it out. So the timeline for payout on films is actually anywhere from a year to 2 years, so it's very, very long after they shoot. We do have a requirement that they have to be paid out within 2 years, so can't hold on to the money forever. And so believe it or not, we've had a few people that have forfeited their money because they can't get their stuff done, which is interesting. And so we obviously, we get a lot of applications. We're one of, I believe, 46 states that have some sort of tax credit or rebate or grant for film specifically. And we obviously want to be competitive in that market because of the economic development that's happening, or the economic incentive that's happening within these communities. And also, at the end of the day, the guts of the program is that it is a workforce program. So the purpose of the program is to put people to work that want to work in the film industry. So what does that work look like? So the best example that I can share is if you ever spend any time, and some people don't, looking at the credits after a film. And it just goes on and on and on and on, depending on the length of the film, the budget of the film. Those are all jobs. Those are all people that all had a certain role in those jobs. And so that's what we're trying to do, is help put Oklahomans to work that want to be in this industry with this specialty. And the specialty really runs the gamut. So aside from the obvious director and actor, which we don't focus on necessarily in our office. Again, it's more of the crew. We're focusing on hair, there's hair and makeup, there's catering, there's accounting, there's also legal, there's grip and electric, so there's a lot of electrical equipment and lighting that's needed on films. There's a lot of camera, and usually it's not one person holding a camera, it's usually a person holding a camera with 3 or 4 people helping with those camera efforts. And so There's also all the rentals that go into place. So who are you renting your camera from? What kind of, if you need a space like this space, are you renting that from the city or the chamber? And we can kind of dive more into that as we dive into the Film Friendly program. But in addition to business development and recruitment and supporting the local film industry and music industry, which we'll talk about too, we also offer a Film Friendly program. And we have 32 cities that are now certified film friendly, and kind of what that means and why would a city want to be film friendly. And we had the pleasure of hosting 2 workshops in January where about 27 different communities were able to attend. And it was we hope to do another one in the fall. It was really beneficial for a lot of cities and communities and towns, because it was a safe space, right? It was it was a place to ask some tougher questions of what happens when a film comes into your town, specifically, like who are they working with, what are they looking for, what happens when they want something for free, because the small ones will ask for stuff for free.
At being there, it was great hearing just first-hand accounts from people that were like boots on the ground during Flower Moon. There was people there that actually talked about their experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and every experience is different. And so what we really want to do is make sure that the communities are, A, that they would like to be film friendly certified, and 2, that they're really prepared and they understand exactly what's going to happen. And then also like knowing what their concerns are. We've had lots of meetings all the way from Woodward now to Antlers of their concerns on like, we don't really get it. We don't really understand like what's going to happen when they come here, and we don't want someone coming in and just taking over, which I totally understand. And so we want to be that partner with the communities on just kind of understanding the benefits that there are to being film friendly and what our office provides when you are film friendly. So Yusuf, take it away.
Awesome. So, yes, as Jeanette mentioned, we had the pleasure of meeting Jeffrey when he came to our workshop in Owasso, and it was a safe space to talk film and music. But impetus for today is to talk a little bit about our Oklahoma Film Friendly Community Program and what that can mean on a city level, even a county level, and we're also working to certify tribes as film friendly too. So in 2020, our Film Friendly program was reimagined because we wanted to offer more to communities than just popping in, doing a workshop, which is great, but there really wasn't a process left behind or a template that communities could follow when a film or TV production comes to town. I'll say I've been with the office almost 15 years. Jeanette has been with the office almost 10 now. And during our short amount of time, the growth of the film industry has been radical in a positive way. The flyer you guys were given kind of shows the impact of that, but I think we can both remember a time when we may have had a handful of films utilizing the program, and now that it's at 30 million, it is not out of the question to get 30 plus films a year using the program, and that's incredible. And with more production business also comes the opportunity that business is impacting communities across the state. It's not just Oklahoma City and Tulsa, they really are traveling. And so whether they're popping into your community for a couple days, a couple weeks, months at a time, we just want to make sure communities know that this can be a pipeline of economic activity and benefit. Also know who our office is to be able to have that communication. If you guys have questions along the way, if you're being reached out to by films and you want to vet a project or know if they're working with the state, to please call us. And so anyway, on the Film Friendly Community Program Fund, we're offering certification to communities, sometimes counties now, and tribes who want to become certified. And what that means is there's essentially 3 kind of requirements that a city has to complete. I call them the 3 Ps, if you will. The first P would be a person or people. Someone that is working on a city official capacity that can serve as the first point of contact for a film production. When questions come about what the community has, what is the permitting process, etc., this person is the go-to. When the program first launched, it was a singular person, but now we are asking for a designated person that has 1 or 2 people behind them, a subcommittee, if you will. And that's just to make sure everyone is on the same page at the city level, because we've seen some change over at city staff where one person was named a liaison, they've since left, someone comes in, they don't know anything about the program or the process, and so that's just to maximize communication on all fronts and also make sure, oh, thank you, that the city is aware of requests that are coming through. The one person definitely needs to be involved at a city level, but the other 2 can come from other organizations. If it needs to be a volunteer or a board member or someone else, it can definitely be that. But again, the first P, person, people, creating a pipeline of questions. 2 would be a permit. So that would be a document drafted by the city that kind of serves officially as their blessing or contract for a film production. It can help a community keep track of productions that are coming into town, but really it's a protective piece of document that is that agreement between the city and the production being in town. There is also a locations agreement, which we will dive into maybe a little later. That is different than this city document. The locations agreement is usually between the business owner or the property owner and the production, and that would be for use of that specific property versus a permit, which may be much broader about filming here on Main Street or filming at a city park. It's kind of the courtesy notification, if you will, and the city's documentation for that production filming. So people, permit, and the third is pictures. We as a state office are constantly marketing Oklahoma for film. We're getting scripts in, we're getting locations breakdown, and the thing is, these projects are saying, we want to know what you have. We need an old movie theater, we need a Main Street, we need a farm, we need a bar, etc. And so when we get these requests, we're pulling locations from our state database, our Oklahoma locations directory. And what that is a database of thousands of different locations across the state from different communities, different architecture, different types. And so when we get a package, we will pull from what we have. If we don't know something's out here or exists, we're not able to market that community or market those assets. So that's a really big important part of Film Friendly. Even if a community may not have the manpower yet to be certified, what I would say is one easy piece to start getting your foot in the door is, what do you have out here? From parks and geography to locations and architecture that can help put Antlers or the county more facing forward. So when these requests come in, we can say, have you been to Southeast Oklahoma? Have you looked here? Here's a representation of what they have. So person, permit, pictures, those are essentially the 3 steps of certification. And when a city has completed those things, they then apply through our office, and we then certify them film friendly. There's an announcement that goes out, and then that community is also added to our film friendly page of our website, which has an interactive map that has pins of all the certified communities across the state. You can click the pen, pull up more information on the community, pull up all the location assets they shared with us, and really it's a signal to the productions coming in that if a community is certified, that they are familiar with the production industry to an extent. There is a process in place and basically a signal of like, this community understands the industry in a way that they want to work and recruit and welcome their business. And so that is a little bit about the Film Friendly Community Program. Yes.
Another question regarding that. The certification process, is it the chamber that you're working with to get the certification, or is it the city council and that group, the government group of the city? Which group are you working with, both of them, in order to participate in that final process of certification? Yeah,
it needs to truly be all, and I'll only say that as there has been an example in the past where a chamber was working on Film Friendly, but without the city. They created a permit that was not passed by the city, and when that person left, nobody knew what Film Friendly was.
The only reason I asked that is I used to work for the Texas Film Commission, and it had to be both.
Yes.
So I didn't.
So yes, it has to be both, and the permit has to be a city-approved document with a resolution that's been passed. And The permit is up to the city to decide what needs to go into that. We have different examples. Some cities, it might be 1 page and kind of an overview of questions. Some have 2 or 3 pages where they get very detailed. We don't care what it is as long as it has been approved.
It's a
by
local
the city.
mandate.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just summarizing, and I apologize.
Sure.
But like, and we work with the Department of Commerce and several certifications.
Good.
And so, for an example, this reminds me a lot of the certified industrial sites that are across the state. And basically, you go through a process, it lists all the amenities that you have on an industrial site, whether it's heavy, light. I'm using it as an analogy.
Yeah.
You go through the certification, it's got a good stamp that you went through all these checklists, and then you put it on a map, you put it on marketing material, and then when the industrial production company comes in, here's all your friendly, film-friendly sites. And so I get what this is, and I get that the city would have to endorse or support, or at least pass through about whether it be the chamber's request, that's their piece in it for the ordinance or the policy, correct?
I mean, if it was chosen that the chamber wanted to be run point on it, yes, but not every community runs it through the chamber.
Sure, but I mean, it could be either or, but I
Yes.
understand when the city would need to be buying, is there a cost for the application?
No, this is all free.
It's up to you.
Oh,
It's not on
oh.
our end, no.
On our end, this is a free program,
No, but I'm
but
talking about the Department of Commerce, through the certification side.
No.
acknowledgement.
No, it's all free. Yeah.
Right.
It's all a service we provide.
But
But
we-
on the permit side, if y'all establish a permit for filmmaking, well, some cities have event permits and they start there.
Right.
We'll make some suggestions because an event is not the same thing as a film production coming in, and so things sometimes get missed. But the city can decide if they want to charge a permit fee to the person applying.
Sure.
Some don't, some do 25, whatever that looks like for them. But we would encourage the city to think about, if someone came into town, they're expecting a permit fee. So, when you say free, they're pleasantly surprised. But if you say $25, they're not gonna bat an eye. So we think it's smart because they should have some skin in the game. It's a serious document.
Sure, if you close down Main Street, you're gonna have manpower to
Yeah,
close it off.
absolutely.
Surveillance it all
And
the
sometimes
things.
film productions work very quickly, especially the smaller ones. And so if they come to you and say, well, we want half of Main Street or all of Main Street, but we have to know in 2 days, well, there needs to be rules in your permit. How far do they need to apply? And if it's a rush, is there a small fee for the rush? Whose approval is gonna have to be required on that in order for you to rush the project?
Do y'all have templates from other certified?
We do. We have
brands that you can
several.
pull from?
Yeah, we have several templates we can send you, and they're all a little bit different, but have some similar language in them. So again, it kind of depends on what the
And then
city's
I
looking
assume,
for.
or I'm just assuming that film-friendly community would have a login account that they could submit their promotional pictures and their pieces of whatever makes them film-friendly, so that real fast.
That's the photo portion.
That's the photo
Yeah.
portion that they could update.
Yes, so
Their
we
amenities.
want as many photos as you can possibly give us. And so our requirement for the certification is 10 different locations, but each location would have multiple photos.
Can you take video?
You can take video.
right now, there's not a way
You
that our
can't-
system embeds it. You
Right.
can link to
You can
something,
link
so
it.
let's say,
Because I was just thinking, because I do drones.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if there was a park and you had pictures, but you also had a drone video, you could add a link to YouTube or wherever the video has to say, check out the drone video here.
Well, I do drone photography as well as
Oh,
videos,
yes,
because I just
okay.
came back from doing them from Utah,
Nice.
but yeah, no, it's good to know. I mean, a 20-second video, and
Yeah.
if there's a possibility to encode that, so.
Yeah, and to go on the film-friendly part too about the community, when you apply, there is an intake survey that asks questions about the community, like population, nearest hospital, major attractions, and so that information is encompassed on your film-friendly page, and then also the pictures, as Jeanette said, those location assets.
Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
In the certification process, and we kind of ran into this with the Film Commission, like I said, in Texas, when some things got changed around. we're a non-union state, obviously, and there are going to be companies that are coming in that are all union, especially from the West Coast and the Far East Coast and Northeast Coast. Is there anything that you would suggest, is there any advice for, in this environment, for a small community dealing with a union company and how non-union, for lack of better terms, contractors, employees, freelancers, et cetera, works in that union environment?
So whether the production is union or non-union shouldn't impact any community.
Okay.
So the union portion is for the crew.
Okay.
So, and we accept both union and non-union projects,
That was my
being
biggest
a right-to-work state. A lot of the budgets over 3 million, 4 million are gonna have union members, whether
Sure.
it's Directors Guild or Producers Guild or Crew, which is IATSE, or SAG, which is actors. But it shouldn't, that would have no impact on the vendors or the community at all, yeah.
Good.
Last question, just my ignorance, I'm not
Oh,
from
no,
the
you're
industry
good.
at all. But kind of like a proposal, let's say there's a film production company who's wanting to come in and they're looking for X, Y, and Z. Does it work as an interface exchange as, say, the Antlers community, Push County is a film-friendly community, identified, certified, on the map, here they are, and here's a list of maybe some, teasers to be attracted to utilize their facilities or their location. Is there a package that's automatically sent out to all these certified communities of what that group is looking for, as far as kind of like an RFP, to see if there's a link, and in exchange, does the certified community then respond that they want to solicit their business? Is that how that works?
No, generally, there's two different ways it can happen. So the first way is a production company or an independent producer or a locations manager that's been hired by a production company will contact our office and say, I'm working on this project. Oklahoma is on the short list based on the script and what's in the script, the needs of the script and what it looks, the locations and what it looks like. Or it's scripted for Oklahoma, so the script takes place in Oklahoma, or it's an Oklahoma story.
So in a weird way, you guys are sort of like an A&R agent for the state, an artist and repertoire agent for the state.
A little bit.
Yeah, in a weird way, because that's exactly what you just basically said.
Yeah, so we will, a lot of times when we get a script, sometimes we have to sign NDAs, so we can't share that information in the script. And our locations database is very, very important, which is why we want more community photos in it, based on what the script says and what they tell us they need, we look statewide for those items. And then we provide an electronic package to them where they can click on it and then they see all the images through the state. And we don't just say like, this is Tulsa and you can find all of this in Tulsa. We're gonna look statewide to give them little samplings of different places. Sometimes they'll say, I wanna be in this general vicinity, or I want to be in this general vicinity, and they have their reasons of why they're looking at the area. So sometimes by the time they contact us, they already have a general idea of where they kind of think they may want to be.
Is that because of like historic value for the picture?
Sometimes it's infrastructure or crew, because the way that a film works is, so they're gonna have to pay crew to work. They need them to either be centralized, and because of if it's a union film, the union rules require them to be within a 30-mile radius for lodging. If they're outside that radius, then they have to pay them lodging, even if they're local. So it kind of depends on what the contract is for that particular project for the union. But sometimes but not always. I mean, right now in Okmulgee, there's something that just stopped shooting and something that's gonna start shooting in the summer. And so again, that one is an Oklahoma story that took place in Okmulgee. So there's the reasons for Okmulgee. So it really does depend. We have done what you're talking about a few times where we simply don't know if this exists, and we'll send communication out to the film-friendly communities and say, we're looking for something like this, does anybody have it? So we can include it in our package.
So basically, you're the hub, the pass-through to promote any of these certified communities, obviously.
Yes.
But then there's some times when you send out
Yeah.
a list of requests.
Yeah, and sometimes, like I said, if a production hires a locations manager, a local locations manager, they're off and running. They're not necessarily asking us because they know the state, so
I
they're,
thought of something about a year ago at Durant, and I noticed they're not on your map, but they actually, and it's a friend of ours, it's Steve Rinningham, like, but anyway, they live in a beautiful home in Durant, and it's a historical home, and production company basically kicked them out of their house for a week so they could do the film production and, move forward. But it was interesting because I was thinking about that scenario he was sharing just of his personal experience, but they're not a certified community.
Yeah.
So if they were, I just wondered how that would look different, if at all. If it's independent location.
at the end of the
yeah, it
day,
may not,
you don't need the state's permission to film in Oklahoma.
Is there a
Obviously,
good source to make sure we're not being taken advantage of?
Yes,
right.
advocate for the local,
If you're
sure.
using the incentive, obviously that's where we're more involved because you're using the state's incentive and there's a lot of rules for that. But then also we want to make sure that the city knows and is, doesn't feel blindsided by anything so that they can ask questions. So it's more of a partnership and a relationship, right, that we want to create with the cities.
So loop that completely back around to the start of your conversation.
Sure.
With the tax incentive, now that we put context to it and a little bit of substance. Now, say I'm that individual and I went through our certified community, and how's it work with the tax incentive locally?
Now, do any of the community members get to take advantage of that incentive? Does the person that owns a beautiful home in Durant get any money?
So the person that got for the home in Durant would have signed my guess and hope is that they would have signed a locations agreement with the production, and the production pays them.
Sure. And I'm sure that happened.
I would hope so. I would think so. And so the same works for communities. So if someone wanted to come in here and shut down Main Street for a week, the production, not our office, is responsible for going to every single vendor and establishing their own location agreements with every single vendor and deciding what that amount would look like to close them for a week. It can be, depending on the production, depending on the timeline, it can take a minute, obviously. So the city can put rules in place that if that does happen, that 95% of the vendors have to be on board, right? Because there could be one person that just doesn't want their shop to be shut down, and that can happen. And so typically when that happens, the production sometimes maybe has to move 10 feet this way so that store is not included, or they have to put a storefront in front so that it's open but you don't have access to it. And so there's lots of different things that can happen, and it's a business negotiation at the end of the day. They're a business trying to do business with a business.
They're a resource environment, kind of like going to the catalog and going, oh, yeah, and your friend's really lucky not getting taken advantage of in that environment. That's the advantage of having a commission where they're an information source for the production companies and
twofold for the community as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in terms of, to answer your question about the city taking advantage of this incentive, no. It's just meant for the business coming in, again, to recruit business or to stir up new business, because there's now, 10 years later, there are a lot of local production companies that are bringing in their content or working with out-of-state companies, and they're producing their content and hiring locals, more so now than we've ever had. And the benefit of that is these local production companies, they want to be here, they want to work in these communities, they want the community as partners, and they want to do everything local as much as they can.
So the incentive for Blue Ivy, if it was on Main Street, would be because they had to go through the permit process, that production company is going to compensate them for the loss of storefront.
Yeah, any business that's being asked to shut down from another business, there would need to be a conversation
So
about
is it
shutting down.
Ever to, and I'm just,
Yeah.
don't even know I'm asking, but I'm gonna ask anyway, but is there ever a certified community where these independent companies come in and they don't fill out the permit, but they have an agreement with this property owner and they go ahead and move forward without?
So
any
that's
promises?
more on a private property.
Right.
Yes,
So
that
this is really
absolutely can
classified
happen.
Public domain, somewhat.
Well, so it's a little bit of both, right? So we want the community to be certified, but also, especially because with the help of a chamber, you can let your local businesses know this is what the city is working on and this is the benefit to the businesses. And we can do additional training or, again, hopefully we'll do a class in the fall where, the city of Antlers is invited and you can bring other people with you to hear more about how the process works or to answer questions. But it's a little bit of both at the end of the day. Any person can come in and work with a private house and say, I want to use your film, and they can make that agreement on private
And if they
property.
don't go through y'all, they're not eligible for the rebates and stuff like that.
The production company, correct,
Yes.
correct.
That's where that benefit.
That's their
to make
incentive,
that.
yeah.
That's an incentive.
Yeah, yeah. And like I
Which is
said,
significant, obviously.
yeah,
I was just gonna add a couple points. One, in your permit, you can ask if you want to know if there's filming on private property. The city of Tulsa, for example, even though it's a private property, they still ask productions to complete a permit because they want to know about it. And I think that's the benefit of having a permit, even if necessarily, this is one time, like the city of Main Street's not being impacted, it's at Joe's house down the street, they're not disrupted, you at least know about the activity that's going on. And if something starts to trend or be popular, you might see, oh, I didn't even know we had this much activity happening, this is good for us to know about. And then there was one other comment that was, yes, a lot of times we're only aware of projects utilizing the incentive program. There are a ton of other projects that do not reach out to us, that don't ask, and people may get cold called, or the city may get cold called. And again, that's just part of the reason we wanted to come out and introduce ourselves too, is we like to know what's going on too. We're not here to police or say you can't, but it's just important, we can at least verify if we've ever worked with someone before,
They're legit.
whether they're using incentive or not, and yes,
Yeah.
because there's all kinds of reality shows, commercials,
I know.
tons of content.
If so, so you guys have a photo, this scenario just hit my head. So, you guys have got a photo package.
We have a
Okay, of
database.
us, a database, let's say of this area of us.
yep.
And whether somebody comes to do the certification environment or not, but they can still come to you and they still have this database that they can look at, which incentivizes us as far as this community is concerned, because you become a marketing agent and to a certain degree an A&R agent for the film industry, for a production company coming in and looking in the state of Oklahoma. We've got a database, and that's you guys. Whether they go through that process or not, you're still available.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a
that's-
free
that's-
database,
that's
and
right
so
there.
anyone can get online
Yeah,
and look at it and do key filters and keywords
Sure.
and parts of the state that they're looking at, and if they're looking for, a ghost town or an abandoned barn or whatever that
Oh, yeah,
looks
yeah,
like,
yeah.
anyone can access that, and people do access that. I mean, people will reach out and say, hey, I saw this location,
So you're the
can
data,
you
you
tell me
become a
more
data
about
source
it?
for Antlers.
Correct,
Oh,
yes,
awesome.
and,
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
two, just to be clear, the certification obviously can take a minute for cities.
Mhm.
We're still a resource. We're still here to help you. Please know that we want you guys to feel comfortable in this space, and we want you to be film friendly certified. We want to put you on the map, but we will always help,
Mhm.
ultimately.
I've got a little trivia question. Do y'all have any, want to reach out and utilize your program through the Eclipse event?
No, I don't
No,
think
not
so.
that I can, I mean, if it did, actually maybe one, and it was at a state park that was in the path, and they wanted to do some filming there, but that's the only one I can think of.
Just curious. I was
Yeah.
just thinking.
I'm curious how the database works. Do you, like, if we have our community submit pictures, hashtag mural, or, you know, how do you tag those photos?
Well, when you register your location, it's gonna ask you to put it in applicable categories. So those are preloaded into the database. So if it checks city park, water slide, it can check multiple things, or it could be cafe, historic building.
Just
some-
diving.
Yes. So you would tag it, and then of course it would have the geo tag of Antlers. It would have a county tag too. So then once it's loaded into the locations directory, if someone is just searching on their own, they could look for Antlers, they could type in the name, they could search by city, they can search by category. So it's kind of dictated. You're gonna get asked a lot of questions about the location. You select what applies, and then that dictates how it will be found.
We could really throw them off, put zebras and kangaroos and they come to Antlers.
Well, there's that. We wouldn't encourage false advertising.
No, we didn't.
No, we
We
didn't.
had-
But if you've got it, then
We have
yes.
zebras, kangaroos,
Yes.
don't we?
Oh,
How many zebras do we have?
We have 4.
4 zebras, how many kangaroos?
I don't know,
A bunch.
12, 13.
And those little monkeys, what are they
Yeah.
called?
Zebras.
Zebras.
Well,
Yeah.
and also,
So
we're
your
here to
mom's like
learn about your
grandchildren.
community too. So we wanna know, we want for you all to tell us about
Yeah.
Antlers, so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
know
Well, just
a
joking
little
aside,
bit. Right.
that lady right there owns Rebel Hills Ranch, which is a guest ranch here.
Ah.
And she's got a petting zoo with all kinds of exotic animals.
Ah.
And she's even got the big tortoise. Can you ride the tortoise?
No.
Oh, wow.
We have a category for that.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
And also, you know, Airbnb we have lots of different categories for a location. And also on the outside of locations, we also have a business and a crew directory too. So another thing you can consider for your community is if there is local catering or construction companies, those people can also register their businesses so that when a production comes, obviously it'll first be dictated by creative and location, but they're gonna wanna know what else can be sourced locally. The more information we have that's put into those resources, again, the more that Antlers can have an opportunity to benefit most from these productions.
I know.
Okay, so, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a lot of people don't understand, just in the set, building a set, electricians, contractors, plumbers, those are people that live here in the town that we could actually use and get more business for.
And then that's my question about union.
Right. Well, and I would just encourage, on the crew side, we have specific requirements. So this would just be for businesses to apply in that sense.
So you guys have talked a lot about the movie industry.
Yep.
What about the music
Yeah.
side?
So right now, there's not a music incentive, so we are working on that. We started working on that this session with some representatives that are musicians, actually, and passionate about the music industry. We do have a music directory, so we have talent, so any talent can be in our music directory, and then we also have music businesses. We also are in the process of developing a music-friendly certification process and figuring out what that looks like. We do realize a lot of the communities are small and don't have a lot of manpower, and so we don't want to, say you got to do all of this stuff. And I think a lot of communities are already doing some of the stuff for music in their communities that we're now trying to find out about. But we also want to provide communities with resources. So for instance, there's the Arts Council of Oklahoma. They provide a lot of grants on the music side and for communities, rural communities specifically, to help them develop their music scene. And so bringing them into the conversation. I know, like the city of Clinton, when we spoke to them, they received 2 Arts Council grants, $5,000 each, for a big music series that they're doing this summer. They also use the Levitt grant, which is based out of California, but they were able to get $30,000 for 3 years for that. And there's obviously, with nonprofit, with grants, there's a lot of rules that come with it, but we're looking for those resources to provide to communities to how can you get more of the music scene for economic impact and to support the local music scene in your communities. So still developing more on that process. But we're super excited about where music is headed. And we also profile locations, music businesses, and film businesses in our newsletter monthly.
That's a pretty wide definition.
Yeah. Music is Music is a lot, but it's good in a good way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I've been in it.
yeah.
That was my question, define film, does that include your music industry, obviously, but.
Yes,
You
yeah.
You have a lot of that going on here.
Absolutely. There's a huge, rich history here. And there's a lot of people out there having the conversations that we need. We want to keep our talent here. We're great at exporting talent. And then sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. And so we realize that, and what is the answer for them to help be a part of the conversation that have left, and how do we get them back?
I can see the goal environment for your film. I just am missing it for the music for some reason.
The impact.
Yeah.
So on the back of this, actually, it's along the same lines as film. So there's an economic impact. So on the back of this is we actually got this from the city of Tulsa, who's working with the BOK Center.
Okay.
So like film, music has an economic impact on communities. So it's very similar. And that's what we're after, is the data on why this is important to the state, why is it important to the communities, what kind of economic impact is it providing to those communities. And there's a lot of not only musicians, but music businesses out there that are operating in that space. So for instance, to set up a concert, that doesn't just happen because it happens. There's a stage crew, right? There's a company with all the equipment. It's the exact same on the film side, so.
Yeah. I just am I'm just having a hard time trying to picture Antlers being a location for a major concert environment.
Oh, no, it doesn't have to be major. So these can be whatever you want it. We haven't developed it yet,
I
but
see.
every community is different, right? So the city of Collinsville does a jazz night.
brush with
jazz that's pretty small, and
So
they have
for the
three
festival, they could
musicians,
have
and they
that.
do it in their main
Oh.
street. So it's whatever the
I see.
community wants it to be.
Mhm.
We're not talking about a huge,
Kinda like how Durant's done
Yeah.
the Music on Main kind of thing.
Correct,
Where
yeah.
They do a 4-week period like that.
yeah. In the city of
Which one? Clint
Davis, they just did their first Red Dirt Festival in
Mm-hmm.
October. They're doing another one. That's on a little bit larger scale.
Oh, it's got huge. And
It was pretty big for the
headliners
first
this year.
one. They had some
Yeah.
really big headliners, yeah, and they're gonna continue to do that. But like I said, every city, Clinton, this is their second year to do what they're doing. And we'd like to help promote that. So one of the things we've discussed internally as we develop music is what exactly do we promote? We can't promote every musician, that doesn't make sense. And so we just don't have the manpower for that. And we wouldn't want to miss somebody along the way, right? And so, but where our efforts lie are with those communities. So if the community is doing an event, we can certainly help market that event statewide.
Are you working, when it comes to music in this kind of environment, have you all reached out to the Choctaw Nation? And
We have not spoken to the Choctaw.
No, we're working, as I said, to go back 1 second,
Sorry.
Film Friendly was originally intended for cities,
Mm.
but as counties and even tribes have started approaching us about
But you
how they
said
can.
tribes, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so we're starting our tribal outreach now,
I see.
and I think we do have a contact at Choctaw, but we
Yes.
haven't had a formal.
But we've
When we
talked to
went to Owasso,
Cherokee and
Cherokee had one.
Arapaho.
Cherokee, yeah,
Awesome.
Cheyenne, Arapaho, we've started engagements there, and then I think
I
Chickasaw,
spoke to a
Choctaw.
councilman to the Choctaw, and I think he was missing it because he was like, well, we have our own Buffalo production. I'm like, you're not understanding what I'm trying to get here, well, they're the ones that shoot all of ours. I was like, not again, we're not talking about just shooting you, it's the whole area,
Right,
other
right.
production companies coming in.
Yeah.
Having the Choctaw Nation helping, like the Cherokee Film Commission would help be a large help
Yeah.
on doing what we wanna do here in the southeastern part of Oklahoma.
My question about the artists is, say the next Yellowstone gets shot somewhere in Oklahoma, and one of our local musicians wants to sing the song on the credits. Does he get to send in a demo and get tagged as local talent?
Not through us.
Not through them.
The
I
way,
can answer that question for you. though.
typically when a production of that size, so that is a giant budget. And when I say giant, like 100 million plus. And so typically the director has already made the decision of who their music supervisor is gonna be way before they've contacted our office. And so the music supervisor will then decide what music is gonna be placed in the film. Now, I will tell you, Sterling Harjo is an Oklahoman. He's actually doing a pilot right now with FX because he's the director, similar to Reservation Dogs, which he wrote and direct. Because he's from here and he wants to be here, he will choose Oklahoma artists. That is a very unique situation, which is why we want to support there are directors here, there are producers here, and that's one of the benefits of that. Now, can it happen where we do talk to the productions about our music resources, and there's only maybe 2 music supervisors in the state, and so we will let them know of all of the resources they can make it happen here. They take it into consideration, but we cannot force them to do that ultimately.
I was just gonna.
A musician normally will do this. A production company will use an A&R agent company. Like I use an A&R agent company called Taxi. I'm fixing to have 33 songs that are fixing to be distributed out to different sources. And it goes through an A&R agent. Well, they send you on an instant basis. They're looking for this type of music. And so it might be a television show, it might be somebody's producing a television commercial, it might be somebody's producing movies. And so they're looking for a style of music, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what you do as a writer, and et cetera, you go, oh, okay, I can write that, and you send it in. So you send it into the A&R agent, in this case, send it in a Taxi, and they send it to the production company. And if they like it, they buy it, and then what happens, the A&R agent works up a contract between you and the production company that hasn't got anything to do with anything except for between the musician group environment, the A&R agent, and the production company. And that's how that works.
And I was just gonna back up a second too about where music comes to play in our office. We've been very film heavy for a long time. We are just getting our music legs through incentives, through developing a music community program. But one portion of the state's film incentive is productions can receive extra benefits or an uplift if they do post-production in Oklahoma, which includes the use of Oklahoma music or recording music in Oklahoma,
Awesome.
just to point out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there are different, thank you for that. There's different, so it's like I mentioned, 20 to 30%. So there's different upticks to get to the 30. One of them is 5% for shooting in a rural area. So that's the benefit of them going into a rural area, which is based on population. And then there's the 5% for post, there's 5% for a soundstage, 2% for a pilot, there's 5% for a multi-film deal. So it's way more than 30%, but they basically are able to choose which works for their business. We just don't do more than 30%.
Well, that's pretty cool.
And as Jeanette said, we want to know about city music festivals or events too. So if you guys have those in your community, please
Like our
send them
homecoming,
our
we
way.
got homecoming going up in June, and we have a street dance
Oh,
on Saturday night, so I don't know who's all playing it this year. Do you have any idea? I haven't heard
Y'all
anything.
not doing it?
Huh?
Y'all's not doing it?
The city's doing that part.
Probably Dustin again.
I don't know. I haven't heard. I just know it's Saturday night at the fairgrounds.
Y'all need to apply for that Levitt deal. When I worked for the
Pretty
city,
cool.
I was trying to do it, and they wouldn't work with me.
Yeah, we plan on reaching out to learn more about them. We've heard of them before. Clinton is the only city in Oklahoma using it right now. I think they've got some pretty strict guidelines, but they also have a big pocketbook, I think. So,
Yes.
but their whole mission is to utilize unutilized space in rural communities. So, for instance, Clinton
Ooh,
has
for
like
music.
for
That's kind of
music.
what we've been trying to do right there.
So they
I
have.
think that's how Sherman and Denison does their music.
Yeah, 'cause see, we have this
It's like a
historic,
4-week
train station
music
here
series you
that's
have.
just got historical society and a huge
So-
parking lot that's underutilized. And
Well, it has to be. So Clinton has
amphitheater,
an outdoor amphitheater that was not being used.
see, we
So
have
it's-
access to a mobile stage amphitheater.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know
I don't know how that would work.
100% criteria, if the depot, like,
Yeah,
I
the
could see a
depot.
depot being a
Yeah.
concert site, so
Well,
basically.
we've done a couple there,
Yeah,
it's just,
it's really nice.
Yeah, we don't run that program, so we're
Let's
interested
look
to
into
learn
that.
more about it, so
I'll
we
give
can
you
share
Dakota,
it.
you know, seem to know more about
Especially
it.
since, you've got the stages covered already,
Mhm.
and then you have the covered area over beside it, it's really nice.
I think the whole mission is to bring communities,
Music
music
to,
to unutilized space in rural communities, or kind of using community engagement through music, if you will. Have you guys ever connected with the Arts Council?
We have visited very briefly, not enough yet.
Okay, and we are happy to make that introduction again, and whoever that would be, because I think you'd really, there could be some good benefits there with the Oklahoma Arts Council. If you guys are interested.
Sam McAllister does theirs.
The Arts,
Music
through the
fest.
Arts Council?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I got that What Dancing Rabbit or something. Music festival.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
so is Antlers the county seat for Pushmataha?
Yes,
Okay.
so Push County is very rural here. Antlers is the county seat, and we're barely under 2,300 people
Okay.
population. So we are the capital of small towns,
Yeah.
and a small town, because the next two big towns are gonna be Clayton, Rattan, Clayton being up in the north part.
Okay.
Got some
They're very small.
beautiful,
It's
beautiful
beautiful
hill
though.
countries around, several, Clayton Lake, which is a small city lake there, non-motorized, and you got Sardis Lake, which is actually a motorized lake, mountain, beautiful views all around it.
The views from Cloudy.
Yeah, then you got Rattan, you can shoot up to, Cloudy and be up in the mountains up there, there's 88,000, there's a lot of public access land up there, you got 3 rivers and the Honabi reserves. So it would be really easy to do productions in like wilderness settings and stuff like that. Dirt roads, you don't actually have to move dirt in here, we have dirt
You
roads,
have-
we actually have dirt roads here. You
Well,
know,
we
that kind of-
actually had a show last weekend, and we were in Idabel, and where was that guy from, Kentucky or somewhere? They make a huge deal of just coming to our Bigfoot festival with their entire family every year. That's in Honabi.
I'm gonna step over and go get lunch for everybody real quick.
Oh,
I'll be right back.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, but one thing, I mean, Woods County is actually one of the counties that's pursuing a county certification with our office at the moment. And for them, it's a little bit of a common issue among rural communities, as they have a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here.
Right.
And they wanna put their best foot forward, and so the 3 largest cities within that county have come together and said, let's do this. And so that's kind of what we're also encouraging with our film friendly program, is it's harder obviously for the rural communities to tend to get production for a longer time, and it does take kind of a collaborative pocket effort. So if Antlers is leading the cause for Pushmataha, that's great. And because the towns you mentioned with their populations, I know they probably don't have the same support of people that can take the pictures or help with the certification. And so any of that representation is valuable, because again, the more you can drive film or music production to an area for longer, the more of a pipeline that will be. And outside of this county, what is the next big city over?
McCurtain County would be the
Yeah,
Ho Chi
Bell,
Town,
Broken
Broken Bow
Bow.
area.
Yeah.
Okay, so Broken Bow is film friendly certified.
Oh, that's the one down there, okay.
Yeah, yes, and Durant is as well.
So question on, back to conversation you had earlier, when you were talking about the chamber versus the city. So how does that look as a county? So if we wanted to get film friendly for the county, how does that work on getting the permit from the city? Because that doesn't necessarily cover the other cities in the county.
That's what we're working on right now. We haven't had a county complete it yet. But within the example of Woods County, the 3 large cities are each developing their permit, and then they will apply. They are essentially running point, if you will, on behalf of the county, knowing that they have the buy-in from the 3 largest cities within that county. So, I mean, in this example, if Antlers is the head, I would say you guys would have to create your city permit here and at least I don't know, there would have to be some kind of contact with maybe the next two under you population wise to get their buy-in or input. They may, I don't know, I can't speak, they may also defer and say, okay, we like your permit, we will either copy it or trust you guys, but yes, I mean, the communication factor would have to be there, because if there's a city or town that doesn't have a permit, you know, Antlers can't pass for this other person.
Right,
but
well, that's
we're
what he was
working-
talking about, when
yeah.
he was talking about Raytown and Clayton
Right.
area. They have resources.
Right.
But they wouldn't necessarily be under the city contract
Right,
or mandate or whatever.
yeah, so we're fleshing that, it's in real time, fleshing some of that out as we speak. But we definitely wanna provide it as an option, cause we want the program to work effectively for the city or the county, so.
Do y'all have events permits?
Yes.
You do, okay, and who, is that through the city, the city? And is there a council approval or city manager?
Yeah, there is a council approval.
There's both, okay,
Yeah, it's like $100 for a special event
okay,
permit.
okay. Inside, just kind of to point out a little bit for you guys, so we did some case studies here, on the second page, but you can see, so we did Flower Moon, obviously, because it's very well known. Tulsa King, was the largest series for season 1 to film here, and then Reservation Dogs was the longest series, and actually the first series to shoot here. And then the story behind the story is pretty unique. It actually airs on Trinity, it's on Trinity Broadcast Network, but it's actually a local company out of Tulsa that produces these, and they've done several of them. I think they're on season 6. They just completed 5. But they have Mike Rowe as sort of their storyteller. But I encourage for anyone to really watch them. I think you can watch them on the app as well, the Trinity Broadcast app, and I think they do stream sometimes. But they're like 30 minutes each. They're so interesting. They're basically historical stories, so like maybe about a past president, and it's kind of a story you had no idea that had happened in their life. But they make it really fun and interesting. But just to kind of give you an example, so this particular, again, they've done, this is only for these seasons, but, you know, they, over a period of time, hired, 874 Oklahomans, and then the spend in the state was about $5.6 million, but they hit all of these towns. So they didn't just hit one town, it wasn't only in Tulsa, they hit a lot of towns all over the state to tell the stories that they were trying to do. So production companies can move around, typically they do move around to make their film come to life ultimately. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind, is even though if the production could be bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be just in one place.
We used to encourage people when I was with the commission, and this has been a long time ago because I'm an old guy, and so just bear with me. But we used to encourage communities, especially rural communities, to develop a marketing program. In other words, because you're competing with all these gold dots here, you're competing with all of them. When a production company comes in and goes, well, we're looking for this shoot and environment. So Antlers, if they're going to give the commission photographs, you need to, like, from a chamber point of view or from a local community or whoever's involved in this, come up with what do we think is our primary asset that would draw a production company in? Is it just the fact that this is what the rural environment looks like? Is it because we have so many lakes and streams and et cetera, et cetera? What do we have that we think would attract a certain type of film environment to our community? And that's where you have to start from there. If you just go and literally just do photographs of here, photographs of here, photographs here, you're sort of missing the catalog per se. It's like, you're no longer the Sears catalog that you counter. You're just a book with a bunch of pictures in it. So that's the primary thing. Once they're gone, if this community wants to do that, then I would say, looking historically at how it works, where I've seen it before, is you as a community go, what's our primary asset environment to attract a production company to us? And wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, you want to definitely put your best foot forward. I mean, the pictures sell it. But I think it's important to know that it's not just the pretty. It can be, you know, the very ugly.
Yeah.
That typically is what they go after, honestly. Or historic, or, you know, abandoned. And we encourage communities, if this is something you want to move forward, is to really take the time to know your assets. So for instance, if the city owns a building, an office building, right, that's not being utilized, when a production comes into town, it will be very quick. The first initial meetings will be very quick. So you're meeting with someone that's wanting you to share all the assets in your city very quickly. So it's almost being prepared to say, these are the local restaurants, these are the local resources, this is a building that's available, you know, for use. And if you promote the city's assets, that's another way that the city can make money off of that ultimately, because there's a locations agreement in place. But also know a handle on your plazas and your parks, so that can be something that's in your permit. So for instance, if they want to shoot on your plaza, generally it's free, right, and for anyone to use. But if the production's going to use it for 3 days, is there a cost for that? So these are things to think about in your permit, because the citizens can't use it. You know, what does that look like? And it's important to remember that a film day is not 8 days, it's 12 hours, they're 12-hour work days. And so it's, so that's another reason why an event permit is a little bit different, because they are longer periods of time. Sometimes your shoots are at night. So call time for a crew might not be till 7 p.m., which means they're doing it overnight. So, you know, having those conversations, and so the city can know what to expect if it is a night shoot. What am I missing?
And I mean, I think to just echo is just being intentional about what you're selling. To use Reservation Dogs as an example, in Okmulgee, you know, one of the primary sets for their film was this dilapidated structure just beyond Main Street that served as like the hangout for the kids, and it was in multiple seasons. So as Jeanette said, while it is important to capture the beautiful too, don't be afraid to capture if something's a vacant space or abandoned. Of course, the topography here is very special. That should be highlighted. But even this, you know, Okmulgee is seeing a film that recently wrapped. There was the Muskogee Creek Rehab Center. Half of it is a hospital that's vacant and underutilized, and they were able to partner with Muskogee Creek to film in half of this, what would usually be high security, not available location, because half the building was empty and sitting there, and they were able to, again, they spent a whole week in Okmulgee just filming there, and I think at a bar down the street. So being mindful of those types of properties and vacancies can be an asset as well.
My mom and dad own several antique stores. And as I was telling Jeff earlier, and they made actually a pretty good living renting furniture to movie companies through the film studios there in Las Colinas and Irving. But for two different production companies came in. But, and it was like, I told them one time, I said, why aren't you renting furniture? They were like, what do you mean? Because they were complaining about slow sales in the retail environment and with the furniture and stuff. They wound up doing more business renting to film companies furniture off of their floors than they did selling.
Well, you know, it's super interesting, like, if I was in Okmulgee, I would now want to go take pictures for Instagram, right, at the place, that dilapidated place where the kids hung out, because I liked that show, and I remember that now that you said
Yeah.
that. And, you know, I don't know how often that happens, but people might want to come to Antlers and say, oh, that's where they.
It does happen. So now we're getting into the tourism aspect. So for the first time, we did a map for Killers of the Flower Moon, because there was so much interest on seeing where it had filmed.
Yeah, when it's an Oscar, maybe.
And so we distributed that through the Pawhuska area and
Osage.
Yeah. Nation, and even in Tulsa, so they could, when they were asked by tourists, you know, they could hand them this map. And obviously that the topic was more sensitive because the tribe didn't want anyone on the cemetery, so we didn't include that, you know, in the package that we did. But
We worked with the nation to
yeah.
be very intentional about driving traffic to public places
Right.
they wanted versus sacred places they didn't.
Yeah.
What they said at that thing was in Owasso was on the same note as tourism coming.
Yeah.
They may see your house that you love use
Yeah.
for it, and now you got people in your front yard.
Yeah.
That's the negative side, too.
And in Okmulgee, they have a mural for res dogs now that people can stop and take pictures with, and so, yeah.
Yeah, there is definitely a very big tourism aspect to some films and series.
So how does your office capture an industry? Because our industry is logging. How do you
Did you
capture
say
it?
logging?
Yes.
Can you give me some examples? Like,
Like pulpwood, cutting down trees.
Cutting wood?
Yeah, I mean,
so do you have like companies that do that here?
Yes, there's a
Yes.
lot of,
Okay.
there's a lot of individual
That's
companies
our-
that go out into the woods and
yeah.
up on 80,000 and cutting salt truck logs for trucks that you see come down the log
So I
truck.
think my question would be, would any of I haven't seen these, so forgive me for the questions, but like, when you go out to these lots, are there logs kind of
Yes.
everywhere? So I actually have seen that in films before. So if those companies are open to having
I mean,
productions
I
on,
mean, we're talking about clear cutting
Yeah.
mountains.
yeah,
We're talking about logging, with
Industry.
trucks, and, you know,
Mhm.
just, even on a smaller scale in times, you know, pulpwood, but, anyhow, we have that, which is basically our backbone,
Mhm.
other than teaching.
There's a,
That's about it.
Teaching.
You're either a teacher or work for the sawmill, you know, or the industry.
Or
That's,
the bank. So that would be a situation where we would definitely want photos if those companies are open to that. Because you could do a whole scene out there. Now, again, this impacts the business, and obviously safety is important. And so we have been speaking with an oil company that has some oil rigs, I think, like in a whole huge field, and they're interested in having films maybe shoot there. So it's going out there, getting photos, what does it look like, and then promoting in our directory. So the companies have to be open to it first and foremost.
And I can tell you, we don't have anything
We don't
like
have
that
anything like that.
currently. So anything like that would be a valuable asset. And even like, for example, Minari was an Oklahoma movie back around 2019. They were filming here, and one of their big scenes called for a chicken hatchery. Well, we didn't have any of that in our directory. Thankfully, they had hired a local and ended up finding a company they could partner with to film a few limited scenes there in an active facility. But industry locations can be huge in terms of manufacturing, oil, warehouses, any of
so we
that.
got a
And,
Chryso factory just east of town, big old Chryso yard.
and we are very underrepresented, I
Yeah.
would say, in that department as far as our location assets go. Because for a lot of companies, it's completely foreign territory to them about understanding that that could be a potential business opportunity for them. And obviously, their concerns are with sales and manufacturing and safety of day-to-day operations, but we've seen some successful pairings and collaborations in that sense.